night before Thanksgiving. Oh, do we have a great panel tonight. Dr. Mark Siegel is here. Yeah. He's the only guest who lets us borrow his prescription pad. There you go. And here's Tom Shalhoub. He's so... There he is. Wow. He's so white, he thinks marshmallows are too spicy. We got Dagan McDowell in the studio. If she hears one more Southern stereotype, she'll beat you to death with a possum. And finally, there's Jimmy Fallon. Voted one of America's best-dressed men by Used Car Salesman magazine. All right, to the monologue. So while citizens grapple with an insane crime wave, what are the most enlightened concerned with? Language. Yes, as the deeds get worse, they believe it's the words that must change, not the behavior. For example, we've seen lots of looting this week, but you know what's worse? Calling it looting.
Looting is a term that we typically use when people of color or urban dwellers are doing something. We tend not to use that term for other people when they do the exact same thing.
So wait, color dictates the language? And who defined that for us? Joy Reid? So if white people do it, do we call it something else? I'd say white-collar crime, but it hardly takes a PhD in finance to smash the window of a CVS and grab 150 men in speed sticks. I got a lot for that. And why are we trying to protect white looters' feelings? Maybe they're just poor white people who needed dozens of expensive handbags to survive. But I guess if we find out they're black, then it's back to looters? Meanwhile, the organized media still calls the intentional massacre in Wisconsin a deadly parade crash, as if a Mickey Mouse hot air balloon collided with a power line. That would be the best thing Disney's made in years. But the media has a conflict of interest. They stoked racial tensions with lies about Kyle Rittenhouse in the same state this massacre took place in. That makes it less intentional homicide and more an act of God. But if that car crash were an accident, it qualifies as the longest accidental car crash in history. And the 9/11 hijackers accidentally slammed those planes into those buildings. Maybe it's an act of nature. And not Mother Nature, because that's sexist. It's nature born from inequality caused by systemic racism. But it's not just words, it's also numbers. Here's a fantastic tweet from the Women's March. Quote, "We apologize deeply for the email that was sent today. $14.92 was our average donation amount this week. It was an oversight on our part to not make the connection to a year of colonization, conquest, and genocide for indigenous people, especially before Thanksgiving. But it just proves what we've been saying all along: math is racist. These woke nuts are more sensitive than my nipples after a marathon." They like the nipple jokes, Tom. But just wait. A few more weeks and $14.92 will be the price of gas. But imagine being so self-centered you think numbers are out to get you.
Well, Mr. King, welcome to the company. We're eager to get you started. I understand there was some trouble with your employee ID badge number. We've prepared a few options for you. What do you think of this one?
69, that is sexual harassment, sir.
Oh, well, the numbers are randomly generated. Maybe this one.
420, Hitler's birthday. I am triggered.
Okay, ooh, I know you'll appreciate this one. Number 58008.
That is my favorite number. Upside down.
We knew you'd appreciate that one. Welcome to Teen Vogue.
Now, the Women's March tweet was funny in an unintentional way. When feminists are funny, it's usually by accident, a sexist would say. It's not unlike the Wisconsin massacre, or as CNN calls it, a deadly parade incident, like somebody accidentally fell to their death from the top of the Tom Turkey float. Incident, that's so careful. That's the vaguest definition of terrorism since Ilhan Omar described 9/11 as some people did something. Imagine if CNN were this careful with other crap. But with the police, the P-tape, Covington, or Kavanaugh, they jump right in. But here they pull back. Why is that? Maybe they're just tired of paying Nick Sandmann. Or could it be about race? When CNN declares that the most dangerous thing alive is an angry white man, this story won't fit. But the best take of all comes from this zero, Shane Firo, who said, quote, What if instead of asking whether a tiny bit more jail would have fixed this person, we asked whether fewer cars, SUVs, in America would lead to fewer people killed? So Firo's literally implying people don't kill people, cars kill people. This person belongs in the Morons Hall of Fame, otherwise known as The View. So I guess we need car control now just to bring the homicide rate down. By the way, Firo is part of a union that wants to end cash bail. And even if their policies lead to death, they just cling harder to their deadlier beliefs. So it wasn't Darrell Brooks's fault. It was the gas-guzzling SUV's fault. Hell, Ford named it the Escape. It's true. Meanwhile, Colorado is changing the way sex offenders are labeled. What's the new label going to tell you? How many calories you burn chasing a fifth grader back to her house? The Sex Offender Management Board wants to change the term sex offender to something less stigmatizing, saying labels based on traits people can't control is bad. So wait a second, they're going to have to change the name of their own board. It's the Sex Offenders Board. Yeah, because sex offenders are just victims of their own uncontrollable behavior. Geez, I hope they find another name for Subway Flasher, just so Jimmy feels better. I recognize that face. And that birthmark anywhere. That's one sex offender referring to me by a label for something I did half my life ago is inappropriate and downright offensive, which might be the exact words his victim used to describe his behavior. The creep added that client would be a better term, which is a great idea. Then start a sex offenders club for men and make a commercial where you say, I'm not just the president, but also a client. One public defender agrees, saying it takes into consideration the uniqueness of who's receiving treatment. Because the last thing you want to do is lump a child rapist in with a bunch of other child rapists. They're all as unique as snowflakes. They chose the phrase adults who commit sexual offenses, I guess because Cuomo was already taken. My thinking, these people don't want society to survive. Ruining the country is their path to remaking the country. As people die, they play with language, and they play to win. And the necessary cost of their victory, as one Wisconsin DA once admitted, is your demise. Or shall I say, unfortunate incident. And you can't go home and cry to your mother, because she's now called a birthing person. Let's welcome tonight's guest. She's the only vegan who won't ruin Thanksgiving dinner. Fox Business Network anchor, Megan McCowell. His wardrobe wipes clean with a damp rag. Fox Across America host Jimmy Fallon. And he's only here to check out my rash. Fox News contributor, NYU medical professor, Dr. Mark Siegel. And he's so white, he thought the Pilgrims were too ethnic. Fox News contributor, Tom Shalhoub. Jimmy, I see you brought your Z jacket. I hope you brought your A game. That was the worst thing I've ever said.
It was solid. You know, I've been trying to think of a way to call a truce in this little wardrobe battle.
It's never going to end.
I know, and I thought I had a solution. I was going to take you to Six Flags, and then I realized you can't get on any of the rides. Back to the drawing board, Jimbo. You know I love you.
Of this brilliant monologue that I wrote, what part of it would you like to address? The tweet from the Women's March, the mutation of language, how I eloquently surmised the destruction of society?
Well, I mean, here's the truth. If we were going to get into this on a serious note, we're in a really dangerous place right now because we have more empathy for the criminal than we do for the perp.
Right.
When you see the language get reworded, we're more concerned with what? Hurt feelings than actual hurt people. I mean, imagine you're debating the semantics of looting. So you're in a store. Yeah. Guy comes in swinging a crowbar, breaking stuff. You call 911. You're like, hey, they're looting my store. And the operator's like, well, I wouldn't say looting.
Yes.
Was there a natural disaster recently? Because it wouldn't quite constitute. You're like, could you just send a cop? You know what I mean? So that's the part that scares me because we have to inhabit this world. Most of the people doing the reconfiguring don't.
That's true.
And when it comes to the Women's March, I mean, that's just hilarious. Like, they're so pandering and woke. I'm surprised they call themselves women at this point.
That's
you know
true.
what I'm saying?
That's sexist.
Yeah, it's a little sexist. You know, I don't see gender. I'm a little upset about this.
Yeah.
And again, the gripe with Columbus is what? He killed adults. I mean, if he would have killed babies, the Women's March would have been like, come on down.
Oh.
You know? Dirtbags.
That is an edgy hot take. I don't know, Shalhoub. Can you do better than that? By the way, Shalhoub, you do look like the world's scariest IRS agent.
He does. He does.
You have this like kind of like appealing, bland vanilla face, but it also is like a great white shark, right? It's like a great white. It's like you're coming at me and then you're just gonna eat me alive.
Well, why don't we talk about those deductions? You know, I always look for places where I can agree with these weirdos, you know, and I found some common ground on the sex offender thing. I don't think they should be called sex offenders, but I think they should be called something worse. Sex offender is already, I think, a politically correct term.
Really?
Yes.
It should be something.
Well, you'd be more specific. I want people to be called the crimes they committed. So if you rape someone, you're a rapist.
Right.
And if you look in people's windows, you're a peeping Tom.
Oh, I love that term.
Expose yourself, you're a flasher.
Your name is Tom.
I know. But that's the thing. I mean, when I was a kid, we used these terms, and they helped you make informed choices. You know, you'd be like, well, I'm coming home from the playground. I got to cut through somebody's yard. Okay, no, that guy's a rapist. No, that guy's a flasher. That guy chases kids with shovels. I'm going to go with shovel guy.
Yeah, shovel guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is, it's be more specific. Do the crime. Same thing with the looting. I don't think anyone is ever charged with looting. They're charged with property theft, right?
That's a good point.
So just go to the crime. If you can do the time.
That was, you know what? That was very perceptive.
Hey.
You know?
That's why I'm here.
All right, back to the Dr. Siegel. You don't deal with sex offenders, although I am your patient. The idea, I don't even know what that means. The idea that like the terms have to be less stigmatizing. Is there a purpose to that in your mind?
Well, Jimmy, it really hit it from the beginning, which is we're identifying with the criminal instead of with the victim.
Yeah.
So if we start with smash and go, it's going to be grab and go. And what about stop and frisk? What happens to that? That already was politically incorrect. And the point about rapists, I agree with. I mean, we're really worrying about sex offenders. They should have a sign that says, I violated your humanity. I attacked you. I destroyed you physically and psychologically. But I've reformed, so you can't call me that anymore.
Yeah. That's a big sign, though.
All right, that won't fit. No, that's true. And by the way, one more thing.
Yeah.
You read Stephen King's Mr. Mercedes, right? The Mercedes killer, that was clear in those days. I think this criminal actually even patterned himself after that. If you drive into a crowd and kill people, it's not a crash.
Yeah.
If we start calling that kind of mass murder crashing because the person is black, we're done. We're done.
Yeah. Dagan, you get the last word and make it Southern. Look at this drawl. Talk about sweet tea.
Yeah, I don't have a word. I just have. But I pay attention to language. If someone tells me that don't call me this or that word is offensive to me, I will avoid it. But I'm not sure that the professional thieves who are stealing from these stores really care about being called looters or not. I think that's probably not in their top 10 of concerns. And actually looting makes it sound kind of spur of the moment and whimsical.
Yeah, this was planned.
Right, instead of being a professional crook.
Yeah.
I don't mind being called a redneck. You know, back in the day, that would apply not from an agricultural perspective, but from, you know, hickeys and like love suction on my neck.
Forgotten art, by the way.
Fashion lizard.
Another thing.
I wouldn't use that though because it's offensive to lizards.
Is that true?
And reptiles and snakes and even turtles.
You know, I think we got to button this thing up, but I think COVID really did kill another thing, and that was hickeys.
Yeah, absolutely. But in my defense, we can't all shop at Forever 51.
Oh!
You actually undershot my age, jackass.
I'm going to get out of this segment before I really get audited.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.